I'm sending this out to YouTube. I'm just waiting for it to tell us that everything is a-okay here. It's setting up our meeting. And I can close that box, I believe. Okay. Are we ready to give this one a whirl?
Yeah, are we on the
We should be on the stream.
yeah, let us know, chat roomers. Do you hear our voices? Do you hear our voices? Huh, do you?
One ringy dingy. Can I get a two ringy dingy? How many dingies are there in the audience? Raise your hands. Low
Looks like
volumes.
our volumes
That
are low.
wouldn't be me. No, Doris.
Could be you.
Doris, turn up
So-
your hearing aid, Doris.
all right, that could be better. I should be
Okay.
better now.
They can hear us, I think.
Yes.
Okay, they said that I just went up. Well, all right, places,
Well,
everybody.
let's see if I can
Mhm.
adjust mine. So
Okay,
we were
well,
both low.
on camera, Toppy. I was told that my volume went up.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm good too.
All right, so please take your seats. Matinee Minutia is about to begin.
La 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 la.
Oh, hey, welcome back. Hey,
Oh,
say, that's a nice kimono you have on. Is that real silk?
well, I didn't get it off of wish.com.
Well, if I had to guess, I'd say you're dressed as a 50s army nurse on weekend leave.
You saw the DVDs in my book bag, didn't you?
Maybe.
Hawkeye Pierce is a young New England doctor whose skills have found him needed in the Far East by Uncle Sam. But he's not alone. In 1950s Korea, many men and women were brought to the front lines in the name of stopping the advancement of the communist agenda. For over a decade on TV, the team at the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital furthered the conversation. And so grab yourself a mink stole, an evening dress, but make sure those bedpans are emptied before you head out to the bar. It's time for MASH, the TV series. Hit it, boys.
What do you get when you take a dash of the silver screen? A pinch of golden oldies? And a smidgen of screaming. It's time for Matinee Minutia with your hosts DJ and Toppy.
Well, hello there, Mr. Smelly. It's good to see you after that little break we had there this summer. How are you?
Yeah, same here. I guess it was a summer. We flashed through it. I don't know. Time is going crazy, and yeah, there was a summer there somewhere.
And we're coming back just in time to talk about another season around the corner. My favorite season. And you want to know why it's my favorite season, Toppy?
Why?
Because the sun is no longer trying to murder me in my house.
Oh yeah,
just like the historical marionette theater here, there's only so much we can do to update the building.
mm-hmm.
And if you're out there on the YouTube land there, you can see me dressed in what I like to call my Taste of Fall t-shirt. It's a
Because
burnt.
it's orange.
Yes, it's the color of Tuscany. So we've got apple cider and donuts and bonfires and sweatpants and hoodies all waiting for us around the bend.
Excellent. Excuse my squeaky chair. It's getting worse and worse.
Oh, so our senior showgirl, she was all dressed up there. Did you see that outfit of hers?
I couldn't help. It was very colorful. What do you call it? It's a, yeah, you said it was a kimono. I guess that's the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she even did her hair up, and it was quite the thing. But Toppy, that show she had in her backpack there, MASH, that was something that ran for quite a while there. It had a little over 10 seasons.
Sure did. Hard to believe. I would have said it started in 71, but I guess research has shown it started in 72. I can't believe it was that long ago. And I didn't know a thing about it for 1972. 1973, I think midway through the season, I finally tuned in. It was an episode called 4 O'Clock Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first episode I remember. And then I remembered I tuned in every week after that for years.
I didn't catch it in its initial run, but it also aired on Monday nights. So, if you were anybody who was still in school, you might have had to get permission to stay up. But I got to see it in the reruns, and well, let's just say that one of my sisters was okay with watching the scenes in the surgery room, but when it came to watching a PBS special on the miracle of birth, she couldn't sit through it.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so Toppy, just to get things in mind here, let's take a step backward.
Yeah, give us a sense of what was going on in the world back then. All those friggin' years ago, 1972. What was happening?
Okay, in 1972, the beginning of MASH, President Nixon ordered the development of the space shuttle. Well, he took credit for it anyways. And Bob Douglas became the first African American elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame. 92nd U.S. Congress voted to send the proposed Equal Rights Amendment to the states for ratification. I think they're still working on that. Okinawa, it was returned to Japan after 27 years of U.S. military occupation. So that was, in the heyday of this story here in the Korean War. Hurricane Agnes. Speaking of some violent weather, we've just experienced another terrible storm that hit the East Coast, but Hurricane Agnes hit the East in 72. And to this day, there are places in New York's southern tier, the Haystack out where near I grew up. And I do think you said in Pickle Hollow, they got quite a bit of rain in 72 there during
Yeah.
this flood.
So yeah, I'm old enough to remember it. And I remember our power went out, and I'm sure lots of people's power went out, and we were sitting around the table with a kerosene lantern. At that time, we were guesting for, I don't know, 3/4 of a year or more, half a year at my grandparents' house. I can't believe we were all in that house, but we were. And I remember sitting around the table and just listening to the house moan, because of the wind. It was kind of spooky.
I'm told that at the time my folks were building a new place, and they just finished the basement. This is a split level house. They weren't quite ready to move into the upstairs, and they were scrambling to keep the furniture protected. But alas, Hurricane Agnes was estimated to cost $3.1 billion in damages in 12 states.
Wow.
And in the Supreme Court, Furman versus Georgia ruled the death penalty was unconstitutional back then in 72. And lastly, but certainly not least, the first women are admitted to Dartmouth College, and women are allowed to compete in the Boston Marathon for the first time.
God, can you imagine? Of course, there was a time women were allowed, but it just never occurred to me. Uh, it's hard to believe.
So there's a few folks that entered into this world back in 72 when MASH was new. Tell us how some of those folks were that were just a glimmer in folks' eyes.
Yeah, these people were birthed folks. Jennifer Garner, she was in Pearl Harbor. She was in Catch Me If You Can. You all know Dwayne Johnson. He's that rock guy. Yeah. Mummy Returns, Get Smart, Jumanji, The Next Level. He was born that year. How about Octavia Spencer? No idea. But she was in The Help, 11, Hidden Figures. Also, John Cho, not to mention Ben Affleck. How about Cameron Diaz? How about Gwyneth Paltrow? All born in 72.
Oh, and something y'all should know. Yes, I did say y'all. I lived in Texas for a year, okay? Blame them. John Cho more recently was cast in the remakes of the Star Trek films as Sulu.
Oh, that show.
Yes, sir. Alrighty, so MASH. It was a long-running drama sitcom. The sitcom part's debatable, depending on who you ask. They try to provide some levity, but it was a television show. And so, of course, we'd like to tell you what was competing for your attention. If you were firing up the old tube on Monday nights back then, now, MASH premiered on Sundays in its first season.
Yeah, totally forgot about that. Well, I
Yeah,
wasn't. I didn't know about it that first season. So,
it
because
was.
I no doubt was watching The Wonderful World of Disney.
I would. Yeah, I would guess my household was probably too. But they started at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights in the fall of '72 on CBS, the Big Brother network. And opposite of MASH on NBC, the Peacock, The Wonderful World of Disney, as you were saying. And on ABC, the American Broadcast Company, the FBI. And this was a crime investigation series, and it ran for 9 years. Now, it was in the last 2 seasons of its run when MASH premiered on television.
Yeah. Now, after Wonderful World of Disney, it was too bad with us kids. So, never saw FBI.
Yeah, I think that when I was school aged, they still had a Sunday event for Disney. They had moved on to like a movie of the week sort of thing, but the same timing. Off to bed. Season 2 saw MASH move to Saturdays at 8:30. So they took a step back, like the time warp. And then on season 3, they moved them to Tuesdays at 8:30. Wow, it took them a while to decide where they belonged. Now, season 4, they were at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, and it stayed there until season 6 when it finally landed its home 9 o'clock for the rest of its run. And I think that it competed with Monday Night Football at the time.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I guess that was happening then. Yeah, it's funny. I always associate it with Monday night, so I guess that's just the way, because that's where it was for the last part of its run. That's what I always remember. Monday nights was Smash Night.
So there were a couple of people that brought us the series of MASH. Of course, it ran for over 10 seasons, so it was sort of a tag team. At one point, there was a handoff, and the next person took over. Now, normally we call this person, because we are a celebrated venue of many things past, of vaudeville, and we even once had a magician. So the main head cheese that was in charge of making this first was Mr. Larry Gelbart, and did it for the first 4 seasons. which was an Alan Alda film, by the way. And then that got turned over to Mr. Burt Metcalf, and that was seasons 6 through 11. Now, some of the other things that Larry Gelbart did, it looks like he did a TV series in the 90s called Fast Track, only lasted 22 episodes, so a little trial by fire there. But it looks like we mostly wrote and directed MASH. Now, Mr. Burt Metcalf, who took over, he also, let's see here, he produced, it looks like some TV movies, something called Anna and the King, did some acting, but I digress. We will move on to the cast. These are the big names that would be up on the marquee if this was a movie, but this is the star power that brought you to the time slot that MASH aired. So I'll go.
I think they would become stars, but when this show started, I think people would have said, "Oh, this is a cast of unknowns."
You know, it's interesting because as I watch some of these programs that we discuss here in Matinee Minutia, because one of my hobbies is genealogy, I like to put myself into the mindset of what this actor was going through at the time. So, Mr. Alan Alda, he is a celebrated, distinguished gentleman who's, I believe, in his 80s nowadays at least. But at the time in 1972 when MASH was airing, he was all of 36. So being past that age now, I'm just looking at that thinking, oh my, he, that young guy, he's the star of the show. But Mr. Alan Alda, he was New York City born and raised, began acting on TV in the decade prior to MASH. Now, Alda had guest appearances on 8 series prior to MASH, and his first leading role in TV in 1971, which is the year before the series premiere, he starred in something called the Mephisto Waltz, and this was with Jacqueline Bisset. And it was made by the same director as the 60s Western series Wild Wild West, Mr. Paul Wenkos. And Alda would continue to star in 5 films during the course of MASH's decade-long run. So he kept paying the bills, when he was in the off-season during his break there. His first film after MASH was called Sweet Liberty. He had the pleasure of starring with Mr. Michael Caine and the up-and-coming Michelle Pfeiffer, who'd be Catwoman later. Alda played an author in this film who wrote a book about the American Revolution, and it began to be turned into a movie. And in the decade that would follow MASH, Alda would star in 5 more films. To date, he has 68 acting credits. And most recently, he had a series of 8 guest appearances on the Showtime series Ray Donovan. And this is a show about a fixer who arranges bribes, payoffs, threats, crime scene cleanup, and other illegal activities to protect his usually celebrity clients. And this show on Showtime stars Liev Schreiber, not to be confused by Maria Schreiber, former wife of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Different lady. I want to welcome our chat room. We've got Maren Gertz, Tommy Hash Browns, and Aunt Tudor. That's all I see at the moment anyways. And they're bringing up some good information. Tommy reminds us that MASH came about from a novel published in 1968 by Richard Hooker. And I want to say that the novel was based in Vietnam. For some reason, I think I've heard that, and there's a reason why they changed it to Korea. Not sure why. And of course, director Robert Altman took that book and made it into his big smash hit movie of the same title. and that starred Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, and a very unknown actor named Gary Berghoff, who played a character called Radar O'Reilly. And lo and behold, Radar, Gary Berghoff, only actor to make it onto the television series. So let's talk about Alan Alda's co-star, who originally Alan Alda and Wayne Rogers were intended to be equal co-stars, but Alan Alda kind of, whether he intended to or not, took over as far as his influence and prominence on the TV show. But Wayne Rogers played what's the character? It's suddenly eluding me. He played
Trapper John.
Thank you. He played Trapper John, and they were mates in their they had a name for that too.
Oh, the tent was called the Swamp.
Yeah, there you go. It was called the Swamp. Anyways, Wayne. I'm not going to be able to say. I'm going to keep saying Rain Rogers. Wayne Rogers, Alabama born. He went to Princeton and graduated with a history degree of all damn things. He was in the Navy, so he had some real wartime. Well, I don't know about war, but he was in the Navy. And in the military service, where he did some theater, and just by happenstance. And after he got discharged, he said, "Hey, I kind of like this theater thing. Maybe I'm going to keep doing it." And eventually, he began acting on television in the early '60s. He was on television series like Stagecoach West, and another 24 TV shows along those eras. And his most recent work, closest to MASH, and prior to MASH, was he had a series of guest appearances on the FBI. Now, Wayne Rogers left MASH after the third season. And I know there's a story there somewhere. He broke the contract, and CBS fought him over it. I mean, he was supposed to stick around, and as far as I know, the litigation ended up kind of going nowhere, and I don't think anything ever happened. But he basically broke his contract, and there's got to be a reason why. Maybe he resented not being an equal co-star to the series, but I don't know. I didn't find any reasons when I was looking up. Do you know?
Well, there's plenty of minutia behind the scenes, and we'll get to that. Of course, that's how we get our name, Matinee Minutia.
Yeah,
So,
all right.
Definitely some breadcrumbs to follow in a moment here. Now,
all right. So I'll just finish up. He did do things after MASH. Well, funnily enough, there was a show on CBS called Trapper John, but Wayne Rogers had nothing to do with that. It was Pernell Roberts who took over that role of a much older Wayne Rogers, and it was more of a drama 1 hour series, not a half-hour comedy sitcom. But he was cast in 13 episodes of City of Angels, which was created by Rockford Files writer Stephen J. Cannell. That was about a 30s era detective. I kind of remember that. In 1979, Rogers was cast in the lead of House Calls. I do remember that because of Lynn Redgrave and Sharon Glass. That was about the love lives of a staff of San Francisco hospital. That ran for 3 seasons. In the mid-90s, Rogers had a series of 5 guest appearances on Murder She Wrote. I wonder why he got on there 5 times. Anyways, if he was different characters or the same guy, I don't know. But anyways, later in life, Wayne Rogers sort of, did other things. He became kind of a businessman and investor, and in later years, he was managing the affairs of movie stars like Peter Falk and James Caan. And then he died of pneumonia in 2015 at the age of 82. That's how friggin' long ago this TV series was. So there you go. That was Wayne Rogers, who played Trevor John.
Now, I want to say that I remember in the 80s hearing about the Wayne Rogers Institute, and I think it was a business school that he might have spearheaded at the time there. But, if he had 5 appearances on Murder, She Wrote, I wonder if he was one of Angela Lansbury's many nephews on that
Probably.
show.
I bet he played 5 different nephews. Yeah.
Each parted their hair just slightly different.
Right. Oh, by the way, in the chat room, Maren Gertz points out Robert Alda was not Robert. Alan Alda was the son of show folks, and I do know his father was Robert Alda, another actor who did television work as well as movies. Also, Alan's dad, Robert, appeared in at least one episode of MASH, if not more than that. So there you go.
Okay, so we are at about the halfway mark in our show. We're going to step on over here to the concession stand where Gertie's made the place look like the officer's mess. Woo! So we're going to enjoy some Boilermakers and try on some camouflage while we listen to this interview with Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit at the 2018 Academy Awards red carpet.
This is amazing. I'm with Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit from MASH, and there's a special thing going on tonight on the show with you.
Yes, it's an anniversary of 45 years with us, but also the anniversary of 50 years of Mr. Rogers and his neighborhood. I don't know if you remember watching his show.
I remember watching MASH and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yes. Wasn't his show very calming? Very calming?
Sometimes I would fall asleep, but
calmly, yes, I know. The audience didn't, but.
So when you got the role of Hot Lips Houlihan, do you have any idea when you started this how the character would evolve? It just evolved and evolved, both your characters.
Yes, no one could have imagined it was going to run for 11 years. I mean, it would still be running if we all didn't say, this is it, we have to do other things. Nobody could have imagined what would happen, that it would turn into the phenomenon that it did, which we're very
And also Loretta
about.
had a lot of input into what happened to her character.
This is true.
She made sure that...
It was nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, she was, my goal was to make her the best damn nurse in Korea. So, this damn head nurse in Korea. And I think that overshadowed anything that I was getting in script-wise. So I would go and say, could we do this or whatever? But the writers were great. The producers were great. Gail Bart, in fact, came to me long before, it was maybe season 2. So we don't know where we're going with her. We're going with you, just hang in with us and we're going to, so we worked together. And they did that with all the characters. It wasn't just Margaret, but Jamie's character evolved. Radar became...
Very evolved,
from a little boy who was sleeping with his teddy bear, went home to take care of the farm.
Also, could I say something that's always meant a lot to me is that all the actors on this show didn't have egos. They weren't on the telephone talking to press agents. They cared about the show that they were doing, and they put the input into that.
The audience went on a journey with all the characters. They loved all the characters. Like you felt for all, you cared about all of them.
I
It's
think
an incredible testament to that show.
I think that we were their family. I know I've gotten mail to that effect where women grown up now saying I was alone, my mom was working 2 jobs, dad was working, and you were like my big sister. And I appreciate that. I think that's what happened. We became everybody's family.
I'd like to add to that I get a lot of mail also that people said the show affected them, that they got into medicine, they became doctors and nurses. The one thing I'm disappointed about, nobody ever said they wanted to be an actor.
Thank you so much. This is amazing.
And we are back. So, continuing the discussion on the cast here, once Wayne Rogers decided it was his time to walk off into the sunset because there was a little bit of a contract dispute there, as we'll get into. We needed a new roommate in the tent, the swamp. That's where they had their still there because you had to have a little libation after all those long hours of surgery.
A little libation. How about a lot of libation? They were heavily lubed.
Yes. So we have Mr. Mike Farrell, and he came in and he played the character of BJ Honeycutt, the new roommate in town. Now, Mr. Farrell was born in Minnesota, so he was a Midwesterner for a time, but he was California raised, so he moved to the coast. His father was a carpenter who worked for Hollywood studios, so he saw his way around and saw things that he probably didn't need to see. Farrell began acting in television in the mid to late 60s, so he was already on his way when he got cast in MASH. Prior to joining the cast of MASH, little did you know, he had over 30 acting credits on television. This included 2 appearances on the Raymond Burr series Ironside on NBC.
I'm inside.
And the well-loved doctor series Marcus Welby, MD on ABC. Both of these were in 74. Now, during Farrell's 7 years on MASH, he would appear in 9 TV movies.
Holy cow.
Yes.
I don't remember any of those.
Oh my goodness. He was even a stand-in for Larry Hagman in the I Dream of Jeannie TV movie.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate.
Well, I mean, he got to kiss Barbara Eden. Following MASH, he would star in 5 TV movies over the next 5 years, and in 99, Mike Farrell was finally cast in another TV series on NBC, the Peacock, in a show called Providence, and this was a series about a successful Hollywood plastic surgeon who returns to her hometown in Rhode Island. He appeared in 4 of that show's 5 seasons. And most recently in 2014, Mike Farrell starred in 5 episodes of the Sundance Channel series with hunk future Aquaman Jason Momoa and hubby of Lisa Bonet in a show called The Red Road. And this was about a small town police crew. Now, in 2019, he had 2 appearances as a judge on CBS's well-loved and long-running NCIS. And he has been elected first vice president of the Screen Actors Guild back in 2002 and served for 3 years.
And he passed away. I mean, not all that long, but like 5 years ago or something like that. Or am I crazy? Chat room, he's gone, right? Yeah.
I will take a look on that because I know that there are only a couple of the main cast members that are still surviving. No, Mr. Mike Farrell is still with us. He's 82.
What the hell? Okay, maybe, I don't know. Never mind, scratch that. Let's get into Mclean Stevenson's, the first colonel that we saw running that MASH unit. He was born in Illinois. He did nightclubs, summer theater before Hollywood. He also did some writing for some shows like The Smothers Brothers. How about that? Before he was in MASH, he had reoccurring roles on the Tim Conway Show in 1970 and the Doris Day Show, 71, both on CBS. MASH was Stevenson's 7th TV series. Following his departure, he was cast in about 5 million other TV series that the network thought Mclean Stevenson would carry because of his popularity on MASH. They tried him in one after another. It was kind of weird, and none of them, I like 6 episodes, they were gone. But I swear to God, at least 4, they tried him out in 4 different sitcoms. Anyways, he did. This guy did pass away. We can say that at the age of 68 of a heart attack. 32 acting credits to his roster. Last one being in '93 in the 20th anniversary of Tales of the City. Wow, I don't. I swear I see that, but I don't remember him in it.
Oh, well, yeah, it was an anniversary special, so it wasn't the actual installments of the show based on the book. It was a look back at the original program. So,
all right. So, quickly, tell about Harry Morgan. He was the second colonel to come along and run the MASH unit.
Alrighty, and Mclean Stevenson's in one of my favorite movies, The Cat from Outer Space.
No,
yes,
no.
Sandy Duncan.
Do not tell me that's your favorite, one of your favorite movies. No.
Oh, I like me some trash.
I look. I was in Alaska for one summer, a million years ago, but it happened to be the year that goddamn movie came out, and movies didn't get around in Alaska very well back then. Okay, so this theater close to where I was living was playing The Cat from Outer Space all freaking summer long. And I had things to do, but there was some off time. And because there was no TV where I was, I just needed something. And I went to see that goddamn movie at least 5 times.
Well, you know, I think one of the cast members in that movie, I'm forgetting the lead's name, has done work with Carol Burnett,
Sandy Duncan,
and now much to people's chagrin,
Ken Berry. Tommy got it there. Ken Berry was in it.
Sandy Duncan did not have a glass eye. She had a serious illness that she almost lost her sight. And The Cat from Outer Space is the last film she did before she had her little eye injury.
She inherited Sammy Davis Jr.'s eye, or maybe it was Peter Falk's eye.
They just passed it around.
Yeah. All right. Tell us about Harry Morgan.
Harry Morgan. All right. Colonel Potter. He was Michigan born to Norwegian and Swede immigrant parents. Oh I got a great grandmother who was Swedish.
You know what? He does look a lot like Max von Sydow. No, never mind.
He had a brief career in sales before his first film, which was with Maureen O'Hara, called To the Shores of Tripoli. This was back in 1942. He was all of 27 when he started his career. Just prior to being cast as Mclean Stevenson's replacement, Harry Morgan had a recurring role on the short-lived series The DA in 1971. He was also in a film show called Heck Ramsey, which was a Western detective series on NBC in 1972.
72. Wait, what? But that must have been really short-lived.
Mm-hmm. And in the 5 years following the end of MASH, Morgan would star in 3 different TV series. His last recurring guest role was in Third Rock from the Sun, don't you know, with John Lithgow and Jane Curtin. And in 1996, that was. Now, by the time of his passing in 2011, Mr. Morgan lived to the ripe age of 96.
Yes. Now, one of the things mysteriously left off that bio, he was famously in the last several seasons of that goddamn show about, all of a sudden the name left me. It was a straight up half-hour police thing.
Dragnet.
Thank you, Dragnet. And I'm telling you, the most wooden acting to ever appear by 2 people, those 2 guys. Harry Morgan played his partner, Friday, and the most wooden acting. It was horrible, but it's just the way they did that show. It was a half hour of, good God. Anyways, it's a sight to behold. You got to see it, folks. At least one show, but make sure you see the Harry Morgan episode. Oh my God! Now, I would hazard a guess that the change in writers and directors, Larry Gilbert to Burt Metcalf, perhaps is one of the reasons that the show changed so much. Now, I started watching the first season just to remind myself because it had been years. By the way, this was in heavy syndication. And when I was in college, I mean, we'd sit around that stupid TV in the lounge and we'd every damn day at 5 or whatever time it came on, we'd watch Smash. Anyways, the show changed drastically over the years. And I watched that first season and was shocked at how misogynist it was, how off. I mean, it was terribly offensive in a lot of ways. One of the main things that I thought I guess I'd forgotten, but characters like Trapper John and Mclean Stevenson's character, the Colonel, Blake, they out in the open with hilarity and casual. They were both married and they freaking had no problem being with girls and cheating on their wives who were back home. And there was no shame in it. There was no, I'm doing. No, everybody knew it. It was kind of unbelievable to me. I think it is worth noting that they probably received some criticism or they realized it themselves, the shallowness of just that it doesn't make them likable at all. But both of those characters were replaced by characters who were devoted to their wives. When Honeycutt came in, he was devoted to his wife. When Colonel Potter came in, devoted to his wife. And there's, that has to be a response to those first seasons where they were like, la, 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 let's have sex. I'm married, but who cares? I'm overseas. So there's no rules anymore. My wife doesn't have to know, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's really notable that those characters were replaced by characters who were devoted, absolutely devoted to their wives.
Oh, certainly. And, to that point in the interview that we heard in intermission there, Loretta Swit, who played Hot Lips Houlihan Margaret, she had an active role in steering her character's direction before the show was out. She went, was off of its 10-year run there. She went from just being the girl that got catcalled at to being a respected woman of authority. She was, an officer. She might have been a nurse, but she called the shots. And, after a while, it wasn't about a woman who was waiting to go home to her fiance. It was about a woman who was in charge of her own destiny.
Absolutely true. Another perfect example of this change, the way the cast grew, the way the characters became more complex and more interesting and less one-dimensional. Because Hot Lips Houlihan, I mean, for the first season or two, that was their role, was to be made fun of because she was, she and Frank Burns, Larry Linville, wonderfully portrayed by Larry Linville. I'll always love Larry Linville as Frank Burns. But again, Frank Burns, kind of one-dimensional. He left the show several seasons after Colonel Potter came in and replaced by a much more complex, interesting, nuanced character. and that was Charles. What was his last
Oh,
name?
Charles Winchester.
Charles Winchester, a much more complex, nuanced character. And that's just the way this show developed. It became more nuanced. It became, some people say, too preachy, it became
Mhm.
too serious. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think it could have stayed on that long if it had kept up the timber of the first 2 or 3 seasons. It needed to change, and it did change, and
Mhm.
people stuck with it. And there was the writing, so many good stories over the years.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing. Now, Tommy puts in the chat room an episode about a gay character, which was quite groundbreaking. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, Frank Burns is outraged when he finds a soldier and wants to have him dishonorably discharged because he's gay. Uh, yeah, they did the writing on the show. Even in the early days, even the first season, it was always about the comedy juxtaposed to the horror of meatball surgery in a mobile unit and the horror of war. And it was always that. And it just, I think, got better fleshing that out.
Mhm.
And oh, I can't even count the number of episodes I remember fondly. So
Just
I,
a lot of milestones in it too, because some people got their careers started on here. I mean, I was just watching some episodes last night to refresh my memory, and there was an episode where Ron Howard guest starred in it 2 years before he would appear in Happy Days.
wow,
And he was a young man who took his brother's birth certificate to fake his age, and he was only 15, and he was in the front lines. Now, Alan Alda's character, Hawkeye, decided to make good. This is an episode called Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, and Hawkeye is reunited with an old hometown friend. And through the course of the story, he decides to do the right thing, and that's to turn in the young man who has falsified his age just so he could be in the front lines because, there was probably a family that was missing him back home.
yeah. And he forces him to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how much you saw this, DJ. I saw episodes over and over again on syndication, same way that I saw episodes of Gilligan's Island over and over. That's how heavily syndicated it was. So I have a lot of favorite episodes, but most of the episodes that are my favorite um were midway through, where I think they had like the perfect mix. Not to say that the later episodes were bad or the early episodes were bad, but I think that somehow midway through they had like the perfect mesh. And one of them was the episode Radar Gifts Colonel Potter, that horse.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Potter's reaction of getting the horse, and that in that last scene, I mean, you don't find that in too many TV shows.
I had a fair amount of time with my dad watching when it was in syndication, and I think that for my father, the relation with MASH was that all of his siblings had served in the military. He was the only one who hadn't. And it's up for debate on what kept him from serving. We think that it's possibly because he already had a family by the time that Vietnam came around, but he also had a learning disability. My father survived rheumatic and scarlet fevers when he was quite young. So, but some of the episodes that make the biggest impression on me is when they introduced, the psychological elements, like, when you realize that Klinger was just trying to get out of being in the war, and of course, originally they wanted that to be the gay character, but the actor who plays him, Jamie Farr, didn't want his kids to get picked on in school, so they eventually turned that. But also towards the end, the hero, the lead.
Well, I just want to correct that a little
Mhm.
bit.
Uh-huh.
It originally was intended to be a gay character, but long before the show got on and they had the first episode with the Klinger character, he wasn't credited at the beginning at that time.
Mhm.
A decision was made. I think it might have been after Klinger had been on for a while, where the what's the actor's name?
Oh,
who
Jamie
played,
Farr.
where Jamie Farr said, "No, this is going to be better if I play it straight."
Mhm.
And I think they went with that.
Mhm.
And when Jamie Farr, apparently, anyways, they say that he kind of wanted to beg off Klinger dressing in women's clothes because he didn't want his children to be embarrassed. So that's where that came in. But he didn't stop doing that because he didn't want to be a gay character. That was because that was out of it from the beginning. Anyways, just a small correction.
Okay, so to that point though, a lot, some of the trivia, many of Klinger's early dresses were based on Hollywood movie stars like Vivian Leigh, Betty Grable. Now I don't know this one, Mae Whitty, and of course Judy Garland. Now, back to my point about the psychology element there. Before the series was over, they introduced some elements that were very much part of the reality of being in the front lines and in the service. Hawkeye Pierce, the lead, he began to question his faculties on whether or not he was fit to be in the service anymore. So there were, a series of episodes where he had these traumas that caused him to question his existence there. I mean, at one point, a woman who was hiding on a bus ended up smothering her baby because they were behind enemy lines. And for a good part of the episode, he had substituted that in his memory that it was a pet chicken that she was smothering and not a human baby.
Yeah, you're describing a scene in the very last episode, which I swear to God was 3 hours. I could be mistaken. Maybe it was 2 hours, but the finale episode of MASH, the very last episode, was at least 2. I think it was 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And on some statistics, it remains the most watched show ever. And if it's lost that title, probably only just barely. But the psychological aspects you're speaking of began emerging throughout the run. And they had a character, a shrink, a psychologist who would come on the show every once in a while. I swear to God, his name was Sigmund, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, there was an episode called that.
Okay, so there were a number of episodes that dealt with this. Now, a lot of them dealt with it in the background with a soldier who would come in and he'd have a problem. I remember one guy decided to somehow, because of the trauma of the war, he decided he was Jesus. Okay, so they had to figure out what to do about that. And sometimes the person that had the major problem up there in the head was Hawkeye's character. Sometimes it showed up a lot. It would reoccur, and I think maybe the most, I don't know what you want to call it, tragic, most powerful scene is the scene you described in the final episode where he has a complete breakdown because they were in danger of being caught and a baby was crying, and he said, stop that crying. And the mother strangled her baby to keep it quiet.
Mhm.
And in his mind, he decided that wasn't a baby, that was a chicken.
Right.
So yeah, that was that was a big deal.
So we are almost at the end of the show, but I wanted to go ahead and mention real briefly here, just a little bit of a trivia here, since we both come from a certain background. In the cast of MASH, David Ogden Stiers, who played Winchester, he was the only publicly and out of the closet gay member of the cast. He came out in 2009, 26 years after the show wrapped.
I never knew that. I didn't know he had done that. So interesting.
Yeah, the poor man, I think, only lived to be 75, and he sadly died of bladder cancer. But anyways, we are at the end of our program, so we're going to make our way out to the lobby.
Oh, I just one short thing
Mm-hmm.
that I just think they replaced a lot of characters, but when Radar left, it was agreed we're not replacing him. There's no replacement for Radar. He was so singularly connected with every character in the show, and beloved character. And they said we're not replacing him. Now, that isn't to say that Klinger, who would on the show be put in Radar's place, he was upgraded, or what do you want to call it when they're given
Promoted.
a promoted, yeah. And of course, Klinger had a really hard time filling Radar's shoes. But as far as like finding a replacement character, nope, not for Radar.
I was once traveling across country, and as they do nowadays, your headrest on the seat in front of you's got a TV screen in it. And if you're not paying to watch the movie, you get to see where you are in your flight path. Well, there was a little blip when we passed over Ottumwa, Iowa, the hometown of Radar O'Reilly. And if it hadn't been for MASH, my flight might have been a little bit more boring.
Yeah, all the characters were like Klinger. It was Toledo, all about Toledo. Jeepers, Hawkeye was like Maine or something.
Yeah, it was like Crabapple Cove.
Yeah.
So, Toppy, we are at the point where we're going to tell folks things they might enjoy if they liked MASH. This is what we call our snack tray. And I'll go first. I'm going to mention a program that aired in the late 80s. Now, my sister got married at 17, and her high school sweetheart went into the Marines. He served just before the Gulf War began, so he got out just in time before things got hot there. But my sister really enjoyed, as a military wife, this show called China Beach. Now, this ran for about 3-4 seasons on ABC. It was the trials of a weary nurse, her friends, and colleagues in a Vietnam War field hospital. This show had recurring guest appearances from future Star Trek Voyager actor Robert Picardo, and of course, John Waters' favorite actress and talk show hostess Ricki Lake in China Beach.
I think a highly regarded series. I think it was met with a lot of critical praise. I never watched it, but and by the way, this was an hour-long drama as opposed to anything like MASH, but it dealt with a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of very similar situations, themes, etc., etc. So my recommendation is, for heaven's sake, watch the damn movie. Robert Altman's MASH. If you've never seen it, all the elements are there, different but same. Very Robert Altmanish, very Altmanish, and an inspired movie. And in that wave of movies that they called New Hollywood. I mean, this ain't your old Hollywood anymore. So Robert Altman definitely making a movie in the New Hollywood era. So catch MASH the movie, totally worth it.
If no other reason than to see Donald Sutherland originate the role that Alan Alda continued, and for Sally Kellerman as the originator of the Hot Lips character, and for goodness sake, Renee Aubergenois, Odo,
Good Lord.
Deep Space Nine, and Benson played the original Father Mulcahy.
who we didn't even mention, but became a central part of the MASH cast as the years went on. Another character that grew and evolved and was beloved. I think Father Mulcahy was a beloved character along the lines of Raider. Anyways, so if I haven't gushed enough about MASH, I really loved it. And I'm sure, I'm not the only one.
If you're looking for a place to catch it and you haven't seen it in a while, it is currently available on Hulu. So track it down before they take it off, because, those services, they change things like the tabloids at the checkout counter. It's new every month.
All right. Well, DJ, get out that damn magic gumball machine. Because, there we go.
Oh, wait. I gotta get coins first.
Oh, coins first.
Me.
DJ. There we go. Now. No. All right. What does that little nugget say? Open that capsule.
Okay. Now this one. Okay. We're moving forward a bit here. This is a mid to late 80s adventure. That's also a fantasy. While home sick in bed, a young boy's grandfather reads him the story of a farm boy turned pirate who encounters numerous obstacles, enemies, and allies in his quest to be reunited with his true love. Starring the future lead of Robin Hood Men in Tights and future love interest of Tom Hanks. Next time on Matinee Minutia, The Princess Bride.
Ooh.
Okay, so if you will, tell us, who did we have in our chat room, sir?
Oh, we were happy to have Myron Gertz, Tommy Hush Browns, and Aunt Tudor with us. At least there may have been other people listening, but that's who we saw in the chat room. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, and in the words of the old time radio show, say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Thank you for listening to Matinee Minutia.
Our show streams live on the first and third Friday of the month.
Go to univazpods.net, click the tower for streaming audio. Enter Discord for our chat room.
You can find our show anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Find us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia.
Find our group on Facebook.
Or visit our webpage at matineeminutia.com.
Have an idea for a show? Or why not let us know how we're doing?
Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com.
This has been an Ollybug production.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
univazpods.net. Okay, I will go ahead and